I was just on that 49ers practice field, which means that I have an especially big 49ers helmet update because it's the last full practice update before they cut the roster down to 53 players on Sunday. So, straight into the highlights, beginning with Deion Jones, former Pro Bowl linebacker, in his first practice for San Francisco. They traded for him just a couple days ago. We'll see if Deion sticks on either the 53-man roster or on the practice squad, with a nice pan there to Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, and CEO Al Guido. Here's Shanahan on the 49ers operation.
As the coach, does it have an effect on us as a team? And that's what I continue to answer on. From a football standpoint, it has no effect on us. I mean, as far as what we do day to day, what we talk about, and hasn't been mentioned in a meeting today, it doesn't have to do with what happens on the field. Everything outside of there, I think you guys can judge that better than me. What people speak highly of and how this is ran, I think it's ran from a complete football standpoint. I think that's what's refreshing here. We have a building that doesn't, I've been a lot of places, but sometimes, there's a bad article and you got to answer to people who aren't involved in football about how you feel about your defense coordinator. You get a punt blocked and there's bad articles, and you got to answer to people about firing your special teams coach. Someone gives up something, or they got to get a bad PFF grade, and you got to answer to non-football people about who you're starting. I think that's what people love about this place. Jed's trusted over the football to people who are involved in football, and players feel that. I've been in too many other buildings where things do trickle down, and when they trickle down and things don't totally make sense, that wears on players also, more than anything. I think here it's pretty black and white for them. They know it's always football decisions. Everything's always been football decisions, and because they know Jed's put us in charge of making those.
And that's one thing that absolutely has to be hammered home in the aftermath of Jed York's arrest. Ever since 2017, when York hired Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, he, to his credit, has done a good job of staying hands-off when it comes to football decisions. This is the Shanahan and Lynch show. And, well, if there were to be a distraction to the 49ers football operation, it would have been Kyle Shanahan's accident, because he is a football decision maker, and that accident with the concussion that happened actually did impact his ability to do his job. However, as we have seen over the course of the past month of training camp, which has been very successful for the 49ers, the operation has continued as a well-oiled machine, which is a credit to Kyle Shanahan. And when he was asked about the distractions or potential distractions of the past few months, including his own accident and obviously Jed York's arrest, Kyle Shanahan was able to truthfully say it's not really a distraction to the football side at all.
One thing that went on yesterday I don't think pertained to our players much. And if you guys talk about me getting in a car accident, I think that's kind of a joke that people think that's a distraction to our team. So I think it's been training camp as usual.
And in Kyle Shanahan's first answer, really worth noting that he did emphasize that he's been in too many buildings where stuff that shouldn't be related to football ends up relating to football, but that has not been the case over the past decade here with the 49ers. Now, with Jed York, I think it had been the case prior to Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch's arrival. We see the Jim Harbaugh, Trent Baalke drama around the years 2013 to 2014, and then obviously the poor hirings of Jim Tomsula and Chip Kelly, and obviously the poor retention of Trent Baalke. Should have been gone a whole lot sooner. But ever since Jed York got Shanahan and Lynch in there, a GM and a head coach on the same page, and ever since Jed York essentially recused himself and let Shanahan and Lynch run the show, I think the 49ers, as a football operation, have become a whole lot more immune to what happens outside the football operation, and that is a big, big key to note. So we move back to the highlights. There's a look at another new 49er, Viliami Fehoko, Vita Vea's second cousin. They gave him number 61 for a defensive end. Not a great number. It's one you got to earn your way out of the 60s as a defensive end to either the 50s or the 90s. I don't think the 60s or 70s are particularly appealing to defensive ends. John Lynch took the field today. This is just a scene of the football operation. Look, he's voiced noting somebody or sending a text message using voice dictation, but wanted to show you one of the 49ers, I would say, presidential leaders over the course of the past decade. Has done a good job keeping the building on an even keel through thick and thin. That's Lynch striding out of the building and heading out to talk to Kyle Shanahan. And that next to Kyle Shanahan is K.J. Wright, 6'4", former linebacker, Richard Sherman's teammate on the Seattle Seahawks, and now trying to coach up Jaden Duggar, a tall linebacker. Duggar made a nice play, a nice pass breakup today on a throw further downfield using all that 7-foot wingspan. Can't wait to tell you all about that. First though, Brock Purdy, who's been so good this training camp for the 49ers, working the feet shuffle, the footwork. That is Mick Lombardi, the 49ers quarterback coach, with some cool glasses, those reflective glasses, working with Purdy, and obviously Mac Jones observing. Jones goes through this drill next after Brock Purdy. Now a look at the 49ers receivers. Missing a couple today, nothing to worry about from an injury perspective. We'll take a look at that in a little bit. One of the receivers who is in practice wearing a non-contact jersey is right there, is De'Zhaun Stribling. Purdy threw a deep pass to De'Zhaun Stribling that was sweet today. Can't wait to tell you a little bit more of that. It seems to be happening on an almost daily basis at practice for the 49ers. Also a no-look pass for Brock Purdy that Kaderil Hodge caught that we have to get into. Why don't we start with that? It was Stribling who caught the deep pass, and a couple plays later, Purdy was looking towards Stribling, but he threw downfield with kind of a three-quarters release. No look to Kaderil Hodge, and it was a completion. So we might start seeing a little bit more of that from Brock Purdy as his game continues to mature. Already a top-ranked quarterback when it comes to efficiency in the NFL, but I think that even more sophisticated stuff can come as he blossoms further and further into the veteran stage of his career. This is important context. Kyle Shanahan went through a lot of the 49ers injuries and expected returns to action today, and they're missing more than 20 players from practice on this day, but it's very, very important to note that the 49ers seem to be in management mode right now. With the Rams season opener coming up September 10th in the US, September 11th in Australia. It's coming up very quickly. The 49ers want to make sure that everyone is as healthy as possible, so they are holding guys out as either a precaution, or they're holding guys who are just a little bit hurt out with an expectation that they're going to be back next week. They hope that even Nick Bosa with his knee tendonitis will be back next week. Mike Evans missed practice today with a groin injury, but he was out chatting with guys, seemingly having a good time. It's clearly not a serious injury. They expect him back at practice next week. Robert Jones, this is important for that left guard battle. He's expected to be back next week. Kyle Shanahan said the 49ers are close to making a decision on a week one starter there. Robert Jones is one of the competitors. Carver Willis, the rookie, first team reps again today. He's having a hell of a time against Osa Odighizuwa. That's a tough matchup for anybody, especially a rookie in practice. Upton Stout, burgeoning star at DB, hip flexor. They expect him back next week. Austin Pleasance, this seems to be good news, the knee injury, back next week. He also is thrust into that left guard conversation for the 49ers. And there's Jacob Cowing. Cowing, this is not good. You don't want Cowing to be missing any more practice after he had already missed a considerable amount. Had the big punt return for the 49ers against the Los Angeles Chargers, but he's now out with a groin injury, although it's still something minor. The 49ers expect him back next week. Curtis Rourke suffered 3 broken ribs in that preseason opener against the Titans, but the injury not as severe as the Jordan James broken ribs. The 49ers expect Curtis Rourke back next week. The undisclosed one here is Romello Height. It's an ankle injury. 49ers did sign Viliami Fehoko, maybe just to get through the game on Thursday in Vegas, but we'll see how long Height is out with his injury. And then Shanahan confirmed that Christian Kirk and Verdarian Lowe are both return from IR candidates, while Dominic Pooney, he had some concussion symptoms pop back up, so he's going to go back into that concussion protocol. But when I say return from IR candidates, the 49ers have 2 such designations that they can use at the cutdown. For players, if you don't make the initial 53-man roster, without this designation, you cannot play this year if you're put on injured reserve. So the 49ers, I've discussed this a couple times, but we'll get more into the weeds here over the next few days. They're going to have to get creative to make sure that they keep all the players they need to keep in the building in the actual building. And the 2 return from IR designations might be used on Vidarian Lowe, the swing tackle who has a high ankle sprain, and on Christian Kirk, the receiver with the calf injury. The 49ers also will take advantage, it sounds like, of the new PUP rules, physically unable to perform. That list rules that allow players who start the regular season on PUP to resume practicing by week 3. It had previously been that they could not practice nor play in a game for the first 4 weeks, at least the first 4 weeks of the season, but now they can return to practice in week 3. So the 49ers may actually be able to save 2 roster spots with less of a cost for Isaac Guerendo, who's on that PUP list for the 49ers right now, and for Mykel Williams, who's on that PUP list. You cannot add any players to the PUP list anymore. You can only do that at the start of training camp, but the 2 are still on it because the 49ers already activated George Kittle, will probably stay on it so that the 49ers can carry them on this team without them taking up a 53-man roster spot. All right, let's take a look at everything that happened at today's 49ers practice. Since we don't have too many more of these, they're going to close the team drill portion of practice over the course of the regular season. First guy that jumped out to me today was Larry Worth, the rookie linebacker. We talk so much about Jaden Duggar, but Larry Worth, same physical prototype, very long arms. Got those involved today on coverage of Jake Tonjes. 49ers are trying to develop weapons into being able to cover tight ends. And that's very important to beat teams like the Rams. Well, today we saw Larry Worth with a big pass breakup using those long arms. James Thompson, if we want to talk about other rookies, defensive tackle, had a tackle for loss against rookie Kalon Black today in early red zone work. But in that early red zone work, Brock Purdy threw 2 touchdown passes to Luke Farrell. One over the middle, one after stepping up in the pocket over toward the left pylon. Farrell continues his productive training camp catching the football. I really would look out for him in the receiving game once this season starts. We talk so much about De'Zhaun Stribling. Well, today, the deep pass from Purdy was awesome. It was a deep corner. He was working against Jack Jones and Marquise Siegel. The safety came over to help. But, I mean, you couldn't even hear the football, and it was right in front of me, touch Stribling's hands as he caught it because it was just like a pillow that was perfectly placed in there. The Purdy-Stribling connection has certainly been awesome, but he also hit Stribling on a really nice pass over the middle after stepping up away from some pressure. You could really tell that the chemistry is on point there. Mentioned the no-look pass right after that to Kadarrell Hodge. Then Purdy just threw a bullet over the middle on an angle route to Christian McCaffrey. I mean, he just plucks the ball out of the air too. He is very impressive. Ogbo Okoronkwo might make this 49ers team veteran edge rusher just because of all the injuries they do have at defensive end. Some of the question marks there, and he had, a couple sacks in that first preseason game. He's a guy who's been there and done it before. But today, on the one rep that I'm about to talk about, I just got leveled by Trent Williams. Sometimes it's fun to watch Big Trent just operate at a high level. He's had to practice quite a bit this training camp, so all rust should be off for Trent Williams because Vidarian Lowe has been out. He got hurt with a high ankle sprain on day 1, and Austin Pleasance now, I think, is the third string left tackle, also out. So at the end, during move the ball situational stuff, the 49ers actually had to go to the rookie Enrique Cruz Jr. at that left tackle position, and we'll see where he ends up if they expose him to waivers or not. I think they're going to want to keep Enrique Cruz Jr. in the building no matter what happens past this weekend because he's a developmental tackle and they think he's a quick learner, and they knew when they drafted Enrique Cruz Jr. that he was going to be a developmental project for this football team. Nice play today. Jake Tonjes had the ball knocked away from him a couple times I mentioned Larry Worth. Then it was Garrett Wallow, who seems to be having a good training camp, seems to be in high favor with the 49ers coaching staff, knocking the ball away from Jake Tonjes on the far side of the field. We saw a combo sack from Keon White, who's back in team drills now, and Ogbo Okoronkwo against Purdy. I think the coverage today in general, I know I've mentioned a lot of completions, but also some pass breakups. The coverage from the 49ers was much better than it was the other day at practice. And, you know, Fred Warner, he put some context on this. It's going to be an evolving process for this young defense, right? One of the younger units in the league with a new coordinator in Raheem Morris this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's a constant, process of finding, mastery, right, at what you do. And, whether it's a new system, whether it's a new DC, which we've dealt with, over the past, 5 seasons, it's just a constant, just everybody's starting to really familiarize themselves with each other through the process. And, I've talked about it won't be a finished product come week 1, right? We're going to have to try to find what's the best product that we can put on the field to win against the Rams. But it'll be a continual process of trying to figure out how to be the best defense for our team to ultimately win games.
And one of the guys who I think the 49ers are going to count on to grow as this season progresses is Jaden Duggar, the very long linebacker. I talk so much about the 7-foot wingspan. I'll keep on talking about it as long as he's making some pass breakups, because today they tried to go to De'Zhaun Stribling deep, and Jaden Duggar on a deep corner somehow got way back there. And with all 7 feet of his wingspan, with those long arms, reached up and knocked the football away. Later on, though, Christian McCaffrey beat Jaden Duggar out of the backfield. Another angle route, McCaffrey a little too quick for Duggar. It's just so much potential, though. I mean, you look at a guy who played safety early on in college. I think that he really embodies Fred Warner's point. As the 49ers are going to figure out what works defensively, they'll develop and grow over the course of this season. Finally, just wanted to circle back to what we talked about at the top, the Deion Jones trade. Somebody who made the Pro Bowl. I'm not sure, how long he's going to hang around the 49ers building. They didn't spend anything to get him. Zamir White was going to get cut anyway. Maybe he's just here to help the 49ers get through this game on Thursday against the Raiders. But Fred Warner's been watching Deion Jones for a long time, and I thought that he had some good insight.
Yeah, no, I loved it. I've admired Deion's game for a long time. He came out in 2016 and flashed onto the scene pretty quickly over in Atlanta. I think he has like 5 career pick sixes. They ran our cover 3 scheme. So early on, my younger days of, trying to learn the system, we saw a lot of Atlanta's tape, and I watched him a lot. Like you said, Pro Bowler, has been around it, has great perspective for the room. And, I really like the addition. I think he'll help us. And
finally, nobody is better to wrap up the dog days of training camp and give us some insight onto the competitiveness and the success of Campton than Fred Warner himself. And he was the one who was on the receiving end of some yelling, some expletives from Brock Purdy the other day. Well, let's let Fred give us the full context.
And, I love Brock with all my heart. I love everything that he's about, the competitor that he is, the confidence that he exudes now to send it back to me, as long as I'm a far enough distance away and can't retaliate. No, I'm just kidding. But, yeah, man, I mean, that's great. At the end of the day, for me personally, I'm trying to create an environment that is as game-like as possible, right? And Brock's the same way. I think when him and I are going like that, and I'm chirping at him, I'm chirping at the offense all day, and they're sick and tired of it, and they finally get me, and you got the whole offense cheering because, they got me or something like that, and we're on the 500th day of training camp, and that kind of energy is out there. It's like, man, you're doing something right? So I think that's what every building around the league is trying to search for at this point in camp, where it is kind of a lull of guys, on the bubble trying to make it. There's a 3rd preseason game coming up versus, guys who are truly trying to get better for week 1. And it's like, how can you breed an environment of competition to where everybody's getting better at the end of the day? And so that's what it truly is all about.